What's the secret of change? We don't fight the old. Instead, we focus on building the new. Welcome to the Table of Change. Come on in and have a seat at our table.
We are back on Table of Change. Is another evening. It's the 24th day of September 2024. Table of Change. Listen, I said to someone today, I think it was you, Tamara, I said, Table of Change. This is not my show. This is not your show, Tamara. This is the show of change for all of the Bahamian people. Let's do it together. There's a seat at the table just for you.
Jackie, you are so right. And tonight, we are really bringing a topic that we've had so much text about, so many emails about. And Jackie, in researching the topic, I realized how limited I am in terms of the topic, and it is so vast. And oh my goodness. So I'm encouraging you, each and every one of you Table of Change listeners tonight. I always tell my Sunday school kids and my third grade students, you're going to put on your thinking caps tonight. You're going to buckle it up. There's so much valuable information you're going to get. Tonight, what we're bringing to the table, and what we're bringing to the table is not just customer service, but service. And, you know, Jackie, we find that service comes in so many ways, how we deal with people in our community, how knowledgeable we are about things that's going on within our Bahama land. And one of the topics, Jackie, that really needed to be addressed tonight was autism.
That's a great topic.
Yes, it's so much information out there. So I'm telling you, buckle up. Tonight, we have two, not just one, Jackie. We have two powerful guests with us tonight. Let me give you a little tidbit about them. One is an entrepreneur. The Johnson Tribe Publishing House. She's a motivational speaker locally and internationally. She's an educator. She's also an author of a best-selling book. She is a wife, a mother, and her name is Dr. Adair F. White Johnson. But guess what? Remember I told you it wasn't just one. We have two. Our next guest is a pediatric doctor. Wow. She has two wonderful children that are also on the spectrum for autism. Wow. She's a wife. She's a mother. She's a powerful woman, Dr. John Les Swan Miller. We have to put our hands together, Jackie, and invite these powerful women to the table. That's going to give us an insight, give us a personal look into autism. Welcome to the show, Dr. Adair and Dr. Miller.
Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for having me.
I am so happy. We're going to jump right in because time goes so fast on the show. But remember, guys, for your questions, you're going to call into 325-5403, and toll free is 300-8255. And our sponsors, if you're looking to sponsor Table of Change, I need you to call 449-9106. Dr. Adair, I want to start with you.
Okay.
When I thought of you and inviting you to the show, I remember a while back you posted a story of your handsome son and his college graduation. And it was just so powerful. And also you spoke a little about the fact that he is on the spectrum.
Yes.
Could you share with us from a mother's point of view in terms of raising a child that's on the spectrum?
Well, from a mother's perspective, I would say times were different. My son is now 24, I think he is. Yeah, I think he's 24 or 23. But back when we realized that his name is Jaja, but we call him Ja, we realized that he had a delay. The services that are available here in the United States now were not available back then. So it put me in a mode of mama bear mode, very protective. I'm still that very way with him today. As a mom, it was just hard. It's hard enough raising children because they don't come with a book of instructions or guidelines. Right. And so to have one who was neurodivergent, who was atypical, it was a lot. And we have 5 children, 4 boys. It was a lot. It put me in protective mode. So constantly on my guard, still looking at people side-eyed. Like I said, he's grown now, but I'm still in mama mode when it comes to him. That maternal instinct triples for me with having a child on the spectrum, because you have to navigate that balance between protecting them but allowing them to grow and navigate the world for themselves and advocate if they're able to, because the spectrum goes from one end to the other depending on where the children are and what their needs are. So it was a lot of mama bearing for me as a parent.
What challenges would he have faced in terms of education being on the spectrum?
So again, where he landed on the spectrum, he's super duper intelligent. He's what they used to call Asperger's, but now they've taken it out of the DSM-5 and it's just a spectrum. So he was very quote unquote high functioning, extremely intelligent. So we knew that he could learn, but he just learned differently. So it's constantly the battle. I don't want to call it a battle, but the challenge of having people change the way they do things so that he could learn. I didn't feel like my child had to always assimilate. I felt like there needed to be some accommodations made. And so here in the States, we have individual educational plans. So we went above and beyond every year to make sure his IEPs, that's the acronym, were on point. Where we hired our private, and thank God we had the means to do so, we hired our private specialists that would come to the school and really teach the teachers what they needed to do in order to teach him. Because at that time, again, they weren't trained the way they're trained now. So for him, he would always test into the high functioning, high level courses. But in those courses, some of the teachers didn't want to provide him the support he needed to learn because he learned differently. So it was challenging because we just aren't where we are now in the States with the support that we give the parents and the students.
Now, this was done in the public school or was it in a private school?
The funny thing is, he's the only one of my children who went to public school.
Wow.
Because I felt the public school was, you're under federal law here that you have to do things. Otherwise, basically, you're going to get in trouble for it. Private schools get to do as they see fit. And if you didn't want to do what as they asked, they could politely ask you to leave. So he went to public school K through 12.
Wow. And how was it in terms of getting them to be susceptible now of, did you find that the teachers were eager to learn and eager to change their teaching way to make sure that they give him the expertise that he needs? Or were they putting up a resistance?
Some were and some were not. I think many were just operating out of a vacuum of ignorance. And at that time, again, it was new for them. I remember we tried to tell them when he first went to kindergarten what he needed. Even his pre-K teacher called the school and nobody read his IEP. So the very first day of school, he's in the cafeteria pulling off his clothes because he couldn't communicate. He didn't speak. He didn't speak until he was 7. And they did everything wrong because nobody took the time to read his IEP to see what he needed. So I found some that advocated with every breath in their body, and they would take the time to learn because they knew that Ja had some gifts. But then you had others that frankly just told me, I have too many in my class. I don't have time to do that, which meant we had to set up a meeting with the principal, and the principal, set her straight. But that was all extra, very stressful, very, very stressful, extremely stressful.
I can imagine. What if there's a teacher listening right now that may not have the experience with dealing with a child on the spectrum? What is just a little tidbit you can maybe say to her to help her try to, I guess, assist a child or evaluate what's going on? Or what is just a simple thing that would aid her in her classroom with this child?
We live in a world that's full of the internet with some very valuable resources. There are several. If you went to, I wish I could quote it off the top, Autism Speaks is one. You can go on there and so many free resources are there. You don't have to wait for someone to teach you. It's rampant. Maybe the pediatrician can tell you the numbers, but I think it's like 1 in every 40 something here in the States are diagnosed now. So the information is rampant, and you're doing yourself a disservice if you're you're an educator, if you don't take the initiative to learn about that child, speak to that parent, and you as the educator, kids have different needs, and to me it's your responsibility to at least take the first step. If you see something awry, go on the internet to a reputable site to find out more. Don't just sit in a vacuum of ignorance, because this is not back in 2000 when my Jaja was in school. This is 2024, and this is where we are. So you have to educate yourself. When you know better, you do better.
Exactly. Dr. Miller, with you being a pediatric doctor, I really need you to jump in. Give us an idea in terms of some of the emails and the texts we got was basically that they don't have adequate facilities, or they're not sure where they can take the child to be tested, or they're just not really aware of what is here for them in the Bahamas. So with you being a doctor and having 2 children on the spectrum, give us an idea of what we could be doing.
So it was just interesting listening to Dr. Snow and her perspective. So even though her child was 20 something years old, the support system that she had, and like she said, in the public system, because of the laws that are there in the United States, they're mandated to get the support for the child. They're mandated to have the individual educational plans. The government is mandated to do whatever supports, in place whatever support system that the child needs to make sure that the child is functional. Okay. But here we don't have that. So that is the frustration with most parents. When you hear them call in, when they come in, is the frustration that, okay, my child is 3 years old, my child is 4 years old, my child is not talking. There is a wait line to get evaluated in the government system at the Ministry of Education, Special Education Unit. And, what we want is for, which is just standard of care, is that early intervention. But the evaluations, sometimes the kids don't get evaluated until 5 years old. And that's a little far out of reach of early intervention. Not so far, but still, you want to get them early. People can't afford to get evaluation privately. People can't afford the speech therapy, the occupational therapy, the ABA that they need. And it's definitely not being integrated into the public school system so that these kids can get it. And then we don't have enough therapists. So there's a wait list for that as well. The government is doing something. I am grateful for that. In that disability services is providing some financial assistance in terms of a monthly check, help with ABA. But then again, that's a long process too. That can take a while, and it's only so much. And then again, with only 5 or 6 ABA therapists, that's going to be a wait list as well. And the concern is, because look at her son, it's good. He graduated from college, he was able to get the support he needs. With early intervention, these children can go on to be functional or near functional in society, get jobs, go to colleges, get jobs, earn a living with minimal to no support. So if they don't get the intervention now, the government is going to be forced to have to assist them when they're adults because they just didn't get the intervention. And this is a condition where you can start early intervention and you can make a difference. That is what is so upsetting about it. If these kids can just have a chance to get some early intervention. And you can imagine a single mom or a mom with 2 or 3 other kids and have to deal with this. It's a lot. It is a lot. I have 2 kids. So with the first one, she got a little bit more intervention because it was just her. And we had not much of means, but a little bit to get her. But now with the second one too, and having 2 kids, it's a bit of a challenge. because I do have a neurotypical older son as well. And so, I have to deal with him as well. So it is just a lot financially, it's a lot mentally, it's a lot physically. So I really, and I think that's why as much as possible, I want to help and show the parents that come, whatever resources that are available. I do the evaluations in the private office. And so I've met a lot of the parents and I've seen a lot of the frustration and I've seen a lot of the tears. So it's a very personal topic for me.
Both you ladies, Dr. Adair first, and then I will come back to you, Dr. Miller. But I have to ask, you're that mother. This may be your first child. What prompted you to realize that your children needed to be evaluated for something, or what small signal that we may miss as parents that we could have identified it earlier? What is something that prompted you with Jaja?
So with Ja, I knew his speech was a bit delayed. Like he started talking and then he kind of stopped and he would just say random words. And the pediatrician would say he needed X number of words by the time he was this age and that. But it still seemed off to me. But of course, I didn't know, because at that time I didn't really know about Asperger's other than when you see, extreme cases on in movies. So when I took him to his preschool, and I walked in with him the very first day, and all of those children were talking, and they were 2 years old, just like him. And I just said, oh my gosh, all of these kids are like really having conversations, and my baby is only saying a few words. So I reached out to a speech therapist that I knew because I'm in education, and she referred me to a government-funded program called Babies Can't Wait, which speaks to how the states, we do have programs, and it's an early intervention program. And they were the ones who I didn't ask for all of this. I just took them to get the speech, tested. And they ran a whole battery and came back and said at the time it was called PDD, pervasive developmental delay, because they asked a bunch of other questions. So beyond the speech development, his eye contact, when he was a baby, he used to lay on the floor. We used to put a blanket, and he used to love to just watch the fan spin in circles. So here I am thinking, oh gosh, this is a way to calm him down, not knowing that's one of the signs. My husband is very mild-mannered, very quiet. Joshua is mild-mannered and quiet. So I just thought this was the way to soothe himself. He wouldn't like direct eye contact. Again, I thought he was just being quiet and maybe shy. He wasn't making a direct eye contact. So with the speech delay, not making direct eye contact, looking at the fan, he had this thing where he would cover his ears with loud noises, or he would rock back and forth. All of those things together painted the picture that they called at the time pervasive developmental disorder or delay, because they weren't diagnosing kids as autistic that young back then. So he had to wait at that time until he was 7 to receive the diagnosis. But in the very beginning, those type of behavior, for me as a mom, I thought those were quote unquote normal, and they're not. Even lining up his trains, I thought like, oh my God, he must have, type A personality, but that's not quote unquote normal. That's not neurotypical, all of these things together painted the picture that I couldn't define, but the specialists, the doctors were able to. So if I were a parent at home, and if you have a child, you're listening, you have a child that's doing some or all of this, then that should be like ding, ding, ding in your head. Like, okay, what am I looking at?
Dr. Miller, please tell us your signs.
So yes. So the same thing with my my older child, my daughter. By the time she was 12 months, she was saying mama, dada, calling her older brother's name. But as I kind of took a look, by the time she was 13 months, she was making eye contact with us, but I noted that she wasn't making eye contact with strangers. And then, the pointing to show interest. Sometimes she would follow one step to command, and sometimes she wouldn't answer to her name. So that's when the light bulb kind of went off. Being a doctor, my husband used to always say, you're just overly concerned and always worried. But I was like, no, I need to take her. I don't want to be the mother that's saying, ignoring what I know is the obvious. So I went and got her evaluated. But that's what a lot of parents come with. So the child is 18 months, 2 years old, and the warning sign should go off when they're not answering to their name. You're calling them and they're not answering. So some parents say, oh, he just, stubborn sometimes and he just doesn't look at you when you call his name. But no, that's concerning. Not pointing to request items, not pointing to show interest, not obeying one-step commands when they're about 18 months and 2 years old, not obeying two-step commands or just simple one-step commands. So not following instructions of what you're doing, wanting to be by themselves all the time, and not really interested in other kids. So if you're seeing all of these things and the repetitive actions like lining up of the toys, so those things should start to clue you in that there's something wrong, and there needs to be an evaluation quickly. So those were some of the things that I did see in my daughter: the poor eye contact with strangers, the not pointing, the not following commands, liking things in a particular order. So the delayed speech after a while, even though she said mom and dad there and her brother's name, then she just stopped saying it. And that's another thing parents come with. Oh, they were talking before, and then all of a sudden they just stopped talking. They're not saying anything anymore. So again, that's a warning sign. So just remember that it's not that. And, sometimes they'll come and say, well, they could say their numbers and they know colors and all of that stuff like that. But remembering what autism is, it's deficit in social communication. So that back and forth communication with a person and that back and forth social interaction. And then they can have these repetitive patterns of behaviors and interests, like the lining up the toys, the pacing back and forth, laughing to themselves when nothing is funny, and not following commands.
We do have a question for you, Dr. Miller. The question is, where exactly is your office located? And the telephone number, please.
All right. So we're in Harbor Bay Medical, and that's Harbor Bay Plaza, sorry, at Harbor Bay Medical, pediatric specialist, and it's right next to John Bull in the Harbor Bay Plaza. And the phone number is 393-5952.
Okay, thank you so much. Dr. Johnson and Dr. Miller, I'm fighting to eloquently or politely say this, but I feel that the question should be asked because the caller did want the question. She's asking, what words do we not use to be sensitive to a child and a mother that has a child on the spectrum?
With our Jaja, we tried to keep him as quote unquote normal as possible. We did things a little bit different. He played basketball, ran track, did baseball, but we had to sometimes talk to the parents for the children. And the word that stood out for me that I had to tell them, and it would just bring out the ugly side of me, he's not stupid. Wow. Like literally, they could be talking to him and Ja is in La La Land, and some of the adults, again, it's a different time frame. So words to me that should not be used are like stupid and retarded. Those are highly inflammatory and insulting words for me.
Dr. Miller?
I have to agree. So I hate the word retarded. I hate it with a passion. And you get side eyes because sometimes they can have, it's a behavioral disorder as well. So they can have just tantrums out of the blue. And we went grocery shopping. So people are looking at you, oh, very rude child. No, they are not rude. And, having to stop to explain to someone what's going on with them. And so they look slow? No.
Hmm.
And just recognizing that children that are on the spectrum, most of them have normal intelligence. And that's another thing I have to explain to the parents too. So don't think that they can't learn. Most of them have normal intelligence or supernormal intelligence. So, like she said, used to be called Asperger's. So some of them have really high IQs as well. So they can learn. So they're not retarded. They're not slow. They're not rude. Um, so just having to explain things like that. And a lot of parents would break down and cry because there are so many stereotypes and so many walls that have been built up or thought of when it comes to autism that, those are a lot of barriers that you have to kind of tear down and myths and perceptions that you have to kind of clarify and let them know that no, your child just have a different ability. So, and we're gonna have to approach them that way.
Mm.
For me, for both parents, you can answer after each other. Where did you get your strength from going through this? And was there a time when you were embarrassed? Walk me through that, because I'm kind of feeling it and saying, could I have done it?
Mhm.
So where did you get your strength for you?
I could tell you that there were many nights, many times where I just break down and cry and say, God, I cannot do this.
Wow.
This is overwhelming. This is a lot. And I think too, being a person where you were taught in the medical field to go and solve problems, and this was a different problem.
Wow.
Taking care of other kids with it, it's different when you're taking care of your own as well. Now you get to really feel what a parent is going through. And I think that's why I can empathize with my patients.
Yes.
So just having a support system. I have a um, strong family support system as well. My husband has been awesome. And so when I get discouraged, just him talking and motivating, and because he believes truly that in the end that that they're going to be fine. So he's always speaking life into them as well. So just that. And to tell you the truth, if it wasn't for my belief system, my Christian background, um, I don't know, because it is a lot. It is overwhelming. It is overwhelming to say the least.
Well, before our other guest shares how she went through it, I want to send a kudos to your husband, because when you have a partner, a husband who's supporting you, because sometimes having kids with autism, it can break up a family. So, husband, keep doing what you're doing. Great job, and you're an example for all the husbands. So, next guest you can share.
So for me, I'll mirror that. I am a good old Catholic girl, so I always knew everything was going to be okay because God has already ordered my steps, and I'm just traveling along the path that He created just for me. And Joshua's name means God's gift. So I knew that God put this child on this earth for me to take care of, and how could I not do any and everything for God's child?
Right.
So for me, it wasn't a matter of if he was going to meet his maximum potential. It was a matter of when. So I shed some tears, but I'm also a writer. So I wrote how I felt. And then once I finished writing, I got up and I went to look for the next step. What else can we do? How can we handle this? And as an educator in the public education system at the time, I had knowledge of how it works and what should and what shouldn't be, and what lacked and what did not lack. And I filled in the blanks, not by myself. I've been married 34 years now. So definitely my husband and I've been together 40 years. So we definitely had that, that support system. We always surrounded our children with people who love and support them, from church to the community and everything. So it would be, for me, just knowing that there's an answer. Me, I use the word as no as a starting point towards change. And if you don't own the power to say yes, then I need to speak to somebody else, because you're not serving me any purpose. So being really diligent with that. Was it always easy? No. Sometimes I got told no, 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 no. This is the highest you can go, and it's still a no. But I would go to sleep at night knowing I gave it the best that I have, and maybe that no was yes to something else. So it definitely, and it's that way now because even though he's 23 or 24, I can't remember, as an adult, we are dealing with it differently because now there's not a lot of services as an adult because he's a brilliant boy. He's got a degree. He's getting his master's degree now in special education, but I'm not even sure if that's what he really wants to do. He's obsessed with Gain. He
Wait
works
a
for Gain
minute.
Truck and he's obsessed with that. Now, what do I do with this grown guy? He has social skills, but I don't know if they're strong enough for him to be in the world by himself. So it's still an ongoing thing. Autism doesn't go away.
Wow.
It's just how you grow with it. And as a mom, that strength, it sometimes can be hard, but as long as I'm leaning on my triple shoes of great face and mercy, I do know it's going to be okay. It's just being patient to know how it's going to be okay. Does that make sense?
Yes.
That word patient rings out. And all of us as mothers have to have the patience and the faith. And it's amazing, Jackie. We always come to two powerful women of God, right?
Yes. And
We
this-
always come back to we hold on to our strength. And then
Yes.
as mothers, I think something just develops inside of us once we are a mother to fight for our children. You guys listen to Table of Change. We need you to call in 325-5403. We are going to take a break and we will be right back with Dr. Adair and Dr. Miller concerning the topic of autism. See you in a few. Come back in.
Table of Change.
Whatever should be expected of an insurance company is exactly what you'll find at Harvest Insurance Brokers. And right now is a great time to sign up for automobile, home, group, or life insurance policies. But at this moment, what's really amazing is their newly introduced National Workers Healthcare Insurance Plan, which is a strong and concise medical package designed for retirees or those entering retirement, starting from as low as $275 per month. Harvest Insurance Brokers, located Dowsville and Armstrong Street. Dial 326-808445.
Quality in a service is not what you put into it, it is what customers get out of it. And Table of Change gives us customer service at its finest.
To sponsor Table of Change, I need you to reach out and call 449-9106. Table of Change is a show geared around customer service and how we are of service to others. For sponsorship, 449-9106.
Tune in to Tamara Fox-Smith and Jacqueline Fernando-Moxie for Table of Change. Table of Change, every Tuesday at 8 p.m. right here on the National Voice of the Bahamas.
Well, we're back. We're back on Table of Change. And listen, I heard we have two men. So it's both husbands. Listen, you guys have some power behind you. I know that must give you strength. And I heard that someone went to college. Let's talk more about that. His degree. And I think you started to say what he was doing. I want to hear more about that.
So in my family, the way we're set up, it's not if you're going to college, it's when and where. So the kids are just built like that, unless there's a real reason why you cannot go. So he actually went to 4-year university. He received an academic and a marching band scholarship because we found his thing, his niche, when he was in elementary school, and that was music. So he was in the band all through middle, junior high school, and high school. And he was a history major, but while he was in school, when he finished school, he didn't want to go and work at the museum, or he didn't want to be a teacher, like a social studies teacher. What are we going to do with this history degree? And so we let him take a gap year to figure himself out. And he finally decided, he thought that because where he works with children, and he did a great job at a school that's for special needs kids, that they asked him to come back again. So he felt that was his calling. So now he's going to get his master's degree in special education. He'll be finished this upcoming spring. And actually, him going to college was not hard at all for him. He was the typical average student, but it has to do with choosing the school that's the right fit. at his university that he went to, the instructors were all trained in dealing with children or, college students with autism. So they knew they have a whole campus full of them and, neurotypical, people too. So it was a one matter of fact, he's flying out next week to go to his homecoming. And I'm nervous about it, but he's not. Um,
Wow.
so yeah.
I just think, you know, as God creation, we just have to know that God knows exactly what He's doing, and He knows that every person, every child, He has something great in them. So, on Table of Change tonight, parents who have children who autism, who are affected by autism, just know that there's something special about them. When she said, we found out the thing, you just have to find out what it is that is special for the child. I have someone here sending a message. Let's get it here. Okay, she's explaining something about her grandson. And she said he was in Pampers until he was wearing Pampers until he was 5. And she said, and I know this child, and this child, if you see him, you would not be able to tell that something is wrong. You might see him kind of fixing his hand in a sort of a way. I think he start to write in the air, sometimes like upside down. But he is so brilliant. He can pronounce any word you put before him. He can add any figure. He is just so brilliant. And so you just have to be patient. And I think, doctors, what would you say? Does love have a lot to do with it?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yep. And so
It's a starting point. Of course, you have to love and put the work in with the love. And sometimes that requires parents to change their perspective as well. I can't tell you how many parents I've spoken to over the years who've been referred to me because Jaja is older and maybe they're just beginning. But some parents also are in denial and they live in la la land. But if you truly loved your child and your child had a diagnosis of leukemia or cancer or anything like that, you would try to do anything and everything to help them. But some parents can't grasp the fact that their child may be autistic. And for me, if you have to love them enough to help them to be the best version of themselves. So love is great, but you have to do the
show
work with the
action,
love.
yes.
To me, that makes the difference.
Yes, that really makes a difference. Faith without work is dead. So we got to put that in. She's telling some more stuff about her grandson. She said he can go in any spelling contest. We're going to get him in one because he will be the winner. And the road for him is an accountant. So we just have to look for the good. You know, sometimes I think we people who we think are normal, I think we have problems as well. And that's the way you have to look at it. Everybody has something that they have to work on.
That makes them unique
Yes.
in each way. Everyone has something that makes them unique in each way. But, here at Table of Change, we always like to break it down, ladies. As with having the children and growing up, what was something that really made you just, as a mother, at some point, I hear the strength in you women. You're both educated women, you're both strong women. But what was your point where you were just the mother that couldn't deal with this, or the mother that just was overwhelmed by it? What was your breaking point?
I think that a lot of times you're dealing with work and home, and there are other things that you have to deal with, but you're driven to do all that you can for your child, and you want to bring out the best in them, and you want to make sure that you're doing that all that you can, because when you have a child, God granted you this child. It's on loan, and you're supposed to be a steward. You're responsible for raising them to the best of your ability in God. So you want to make sure that you're doing what you need to do. And in the case of a child that's on the spectrum, like she said, it's going to be just a little bit harder, a little bit, it's different. You're going to have to put a lot of work into it. And there are times when a lot of people are not very understanding. And there are times then you have to go to one place to the next try to find the perfect fit.
Yeah.
So there are times when you get frustrated and you feel, oh boy, at the end of the day that you've gone through so much today and had so many roadblocks and obstacles, and it becomes overwhelming. But I don't think there's ever time where I said, oh, this is just too much and I'm throwing it in the towel. No. I cry, I pray, and I dust myself off, and I keep going, and I find other means, because I'm determined that I am not going to give up. A lot of these kids, like you said, they're very special. They have some unique ability. I don't think I've ever met one of my patients where you didn't see something that was unique or
Yes.
special in them that you can see them doing later on in life if you could just nurture it and pull it out and give them a chance. My oldest daughter, she can hear a song and she will go to the piano and play. So I have her in music classes. We started early and we're just perfecting that gift because we feel that that's something that God placed in her, and that is going to take her places. You know, your gift will make room for you.
Yes.
So,
Okay, I have another question. They're asking, when the kids were growing up, or I guess, doctor, your kids are still small? I didn't get the age.
yes, my daughter is 11. She just turned 11, and my son is just turned 7.
So do you ever just let them get away with doing things, or you chastise them just like you would, like we call normal kids? Is that a challenge for you?
So that's a thing in this house too. And my husband is like that too. We treat them just like they're neurotypical kids as well.
Right.
So no, sometimes we may say, oh, okay, that may be a little bit of autism and that may be a little bit of rudeness.
Yes. You got to be able to know the difference.
But we try our best to treat them as typical as possible and try not to restrict them with the extracurricular activities, getting them involved in things, totally getting them involved in church. My oldest, my daughter, does play for her children's church in praise and worship because she likes the piano. So we try to integrate them into things just like any normal child would. We don't want them to feel that they need to be an outcast or something's wrong with them. No, they just have a different ability. And we don't want people to just be looking at them or let them feel that they have to struggle or be frowned upon or anything like that. We try to integrate them just like we do my oldest son.
And I have to agree with her on that. Like my Jaja, he actually was my easiest one because he's so laid back. I think that's just his personality, and he has autism. But he was the easy one with those other boys that always tearing up stuff in my house, and they would be. It's very rare he got in trouble, but I have to say, I was pretty soft because he'd get really emotional, and I can't do the tears with him. So he may have gotten away with a few more things than his brothers, but he did way less. Those brothers, just little terrorists in the house with things. So, yeah.
How many boys do you have in total? How many kids do you have in total?
We have 5 children. Our daughter is adopted, the oldest one. We have 4 biological sons. And the last 3 are stair steps. Like they're like 21, 22, 23, something like that. So, yeah, those last 2 are a lot.
Now, Dr. Adair, I'm getting so many messages back and forth. I have to do this to you. I know tonight we were talking about autism, but earlier in the show that I mentioned you're an entrepreneur, and then you have the Johnson Tribe Publishing House. And I think that's where this question's coming from. She's asking, give us a little bit in terms of what do you do as a publishing house? She interested in getting it out there. How could you assist her?
So we meet our clients where they are and take them to where they need to be. We offer a variety of packages and services to help people take the manuscript, or if they don't have one, we can help them create one. And we go through the entire publishing process. So it can be on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, depending on what they come to us with. Some people have completed manuscripts. We do the editing, book cover design, formatting, ISBN barcode, all the beautiful things you need to make it a book. And that's what we've been in business for 12 years now, since 2012. Yeah, we just help people write and publish books, meet them where they are, select the package, and that's how we get them going.
And how can they get in contact with you?
We do. There's numerous ways. If you Google me, my website can come up. There's a contact form on there. I'm on social media. That's probably the fastest way. Adair White Johnson, send me a message. All of my pages are public pages. That's probably the fastest way, because going through the website, sometimes, they send you an email and it goes into junk. Yeah.
And you said you're a best-selling author. Give us the name of one or two of your books.
So my brand started out Get Over It, because I really was focusing on motivating and empowering women to move towards positive changes in their lives. And so I have this series of books, 30 Days to Get Over It, How to Get Over It in 21 Days, 21 Ways to Get Over It. The 21 Ways to Get Over It is my most popular book. But really, and then my planners are really huge too. Anyone that's into my planners have motivational messages, affirmation scriptures, budget sheets and all of that. So again, you went on Amazon and you put in my name and you put in Get Over It, the books just pop up. I have over 20 books now.
Wow.
Wow. Ladies, we do have another question. Let me get this in. She's been waiting for a while for the answer. The question is, what is your recommendation for someone who is suspected to be autistic, is now a teenager, was never tested at an early age, and he might be resentful to the thought of being tested? So let me summarize it. I do apologize. I fumbled that. She's basically asking, the teenager has never been tested, and she wants to know how to approach it in terms of getting this teenager tested now.
I know the pediatrician may have a different response, but I'm going to treat that. I currently I work as a 504 coordinator here, and we talked about the government here having different programs and accommodations and so on. So I do some part-time hours delivering services there, and we get this a lot because it's a high school where teenagers are really, parents think they are, teachers think they are on the spectrum or need to be evaluated, and the teens don't want to do it. As a parent, I know they say you have to give the kids their room and space and let them make decisions. I treat it like if my child had cancer, leukemia, or any of those, could be terminal diseases, I'm going to do whatever tests it takes for me to figure out how to help them. It's the same thing in my mind. If I think you're on the spectrum, for me to make sure that you're able to live a full and productive life, I need to find out what is wrong and what are the steps we can do. We have to diagnose it first before we can come up with a solution. And I'm going to treat it the same way as if I thought you had leukemia, cancer, and all of that. So that's just the mom and me, how I'm going to approach that. So the child can say no, but as long as they're under my, legal whatever, we're going to get this done in order for me to help you.
Dr. Miller?
I have to say that I agree with Dr. Adair 100%. So we do get a lot of patients, our patients that we see over and over or that come to the clinic, and they're in denial about the fact that the child is 3, 4, 5 and not talking. Sometimes we don't see them for the first time until they're 6 or 7. And the child is at home with mom and not at school because the parent recognizes that there's a challenge, but they don't do anything about it, or they're in denial or don't want to face it. And I say sometimes to them, okay, if you are feeling ashamed or you just don't want to face that there is a label for this, we don't have to label it with anything, but you need to get your child the help that they need. Because as a parent, as a mother, You want to be able to say that I gave you all the tools that you needed to become a functional adult or a near functional adult. So if there is a problem, like she said, you have a cut, is a bleed, you have diabetes, you have cancer. No, we need to go to the doctor. We need to get the investigation. We need to find what is the modality of the treatment, and we need to get down to the treatment, the therapy, so that we could get resolutions of the symptoms. So you have to do whatever is necessary to make sure that your child gets the help that they need. So some of them that just don't like that label because they think there's something wrong with it. Okay, fine. We don't have to put any labels on, but get the child the help that they need.
Okay. One more question. We got to squeeze this in. What do you ladies feel? And Dr. Adair has strong ties to the Bahamas. I know we mentioned something about being abroad, but Dr. Adair, let them know you have Bahamian roots so she can answer this question also. In terms of the government, what any government that's in power, what could the government do to provide assistance for our people here in Nassau or parents that are dealing with autistic children? What is a small thing that maybe something that's being done in the U.S. that you've been exposed to, Dr. Adair, or you, Dr. Miller, having the children with the on the spectrum? What is something that you think the government can improve on?
Now, this is a topic that if I get started on, I get very upset about because I'm sorry. And I'm not ascribing to one particular government or the next. I'm speaking as a mother, speaking as an advocate for children. We're not doing enough. So I was a part of a group called Families of the Spectrum. We know that there's reach. I just feel that we all need to come together and petition even more. So we've written letters trying to get the government to wake up, to be aware. If you ask any physician, any pediatrician to the clinic, they'll tell you within the last few years, we've been seeing more children than we saw before coming out with developmental delays or delayed speech or suspect of autism. This is a problem. We can't just sit back and say, we're going to just do a little bit. No, I believe in getting to the root of the problem. I believe in being aggressive. We can't just put things into place. Yes, the United States and Canada have been around. They have support and finances and all that. But we have to do what we need to do to make sure, like I said, that these children get to a point where they're functional and they're functional adults. Because if you don't address this problem now, you're going to be addressing this problem when they're adults and they can't fend for themselves. So the government will still be supporting them, will still need to come to their aid, will still need to put them in homes and all of that stuff like that. So why don't we do what we need to do now, intervene now, do the early intervention now? Yes, we're not saying that because, it's our children. We have to accept the responsibility. We have to do what we need to do to make sure that we give the children the things that they need. And I do that. I make sure it's in place. Whatever I have to do, I will do. I will work 3-4 jobs. I'll make sure that is in place. But the government need to recognize, because there are a lot of people who cannot afford. They're hurting. No longer than 3 days ago, I had a mother, just bawling, crying to me because she's just frustrated and it's just not her. I get a lot of mothers who just break down in tears. They're overwhelmed. So if we don't do some sort of intervention, the government don't see that there is a problem and that they have to start doing something, do a little bit more, whatever United States have in place or Canada, even if we do it in a small way, we have to intervene in these kids' life because this is the condition where if you do some intervention, that you can get a positive outcome.
Dr. Johnson?
Yeah, so much I'm much aligned with what she said, but I would say, and I speak because I have several Bahamian clients, and because of my Bahamian roots, my sisters and my dad was Bahamian. I speak, I'm aware of what's not being offered there. I would say you can start small, which wouldn't be a huge investment in hosting workshops and seminars for the parents, for the educators so that parents can be aware and they can maybe you can teach them some skills and some things that they can do at home, maybe while they're waiting for their child to get the full evaluation and so on, and start to remove the stigma marketing that it's okay, if someone is autistic. I don't know what the marketing is down there, but just like it's okay to be neurodivergent, to be different. So on a small scale, if the government doesn't want to invest millions of dollars right now, you can at least start with workshops and seminars in the communities with the parents. This is what it looks like if your child is not doing this, that, the other, then here are some things that you need to be aware of. And then the educators. One of the biggest barriers we had was that the teachers didn't know what to do with Job because he was so smart, but yet he wasn't talking. So how do we teach a child that we know knows these answers, but he's not talking? So little things can go a long way. Just education is the foundation. And I think that the government there can start with something like that while they're figuring out the big money projects, if that makes sense.
Exactly. Dr. Miller, we're being asked one more time for you to repeat the name of your office and the location and the telephone number, please.
That's pediatric specialist at Harbor Bay Medical, and it's located in the Harbor Bay Plaza next to John Bull, and it's 393-5952 or 605-2146.
Mm-hmm. We have a question, and I know we're running out of time, but we're close to time, but I have to ask this question. She's been hanging on for a little while. She wants to know, she attends church with a couple with an autistic child. And she feels that the mother, like any mother, can use a break, just maybe just a night out, a babysitting night. She says it's a really good couple and she would like to give them a night out. But she said she's a little hesitant because the child is autistic. She's like, do I ask certain questions or what do I do if now she would like to take the child for maybe, a few hours so the parents could get a night out. What should she be aware of? I think she's trying to ask.
Well, to me, it depends on where the child falls on the spectrum. If she took my job, just know that he only eats pizza and chicken nuggets, and he's going to watch TV. But she could take another child that can be a danger to themselves if you didn't watch them. It could be an eloper, one that escapes out and runs everywhere. So I really think it depends on the child and what, where they are on the spectrum and what their own, I don't want to call it challenges, what their own challenges are. That would be key, that she needs to learn about that child, to me.
And the parents would offer that information.
Right.
I'm sure
yes.
If anyone is keeping him, the first thing you would say is that the pizza and the nuggets, right? To make sure they're aware.
Unless she's trying to say, how do I ask them? How do I approach them how would they say yes? But you would never know until you ask. So just go ahead and ask.
Mm-hmm. And I don't.
So how would she ask if it was a neurotypical child?
Exactly, and I don't think they'll say no.
No,
right. If it's a neurotypical child, just ask.
And just like any neurotypical child too, you want to ask, is there any allergies? Like, what are the things I need to look out? What are the things that I need to be careful of? What are the things that he likes to do? And the parent will tell you. And if there are scary things like he escapes or he doesn't seem to recognize that there's danger, they will tell you all of those things as well. And I think that they would actually jump at the chance to have that break.
Especially if you have a relationship.
It's a great thing to do.
Yeah, especially if you know the parent. I think just make sure you're a friend of the parents, you have a relationship, and I think that will be okay.
Yeah. I think it's a great idea because, like you say, every mother needs a break.
Yeah,
every mother needs a break, and I think if her heart is if it's being dropped in her spirit to ask, she should ask.
Yes,
ladies, thank you so much for bringing so much clarity to
That was
the issue of
nice.
autism and the spectrum and what's out there and available out there. There's so much information that you imparted with us tonight. I have to thank each and every one of you for taking the time out of your busy schedules and coming in here and sharing your lives. You know, not only did we hear what you're saying, we also heard it from your heart.
That's
And that
right.
takes a lot of courage, and we want to reward that here on Table of Change. So we want to thank Dr. Adair and Dr. Miller. Is there anything you want to say before we close out, ladies?
No, I don't have anything prepared, but thank you for having me.
Dr. Miller?
I was excited for the chance to actually participate in this forum. So thank you for inviting me.
And thank each and every one of you for listening to Table.
Table of Change. We'll see you next week, and you can always tune in every Tuesday at 8 p.m.
Radio Bahamas 1540 AM 104.5 FM, the national voice of the Bahamas, where only the sun covers the Bahamas better. You are tuned into the program Table of Change with the host, Miss Jacqueline Fernanda Moxie, and also to Miss Tamara Fox-Smith. It's 9 p.m. Tuesday, September 24th, 2024.
Covering the islands like the sun.